Upgrade anytime at Prairie Mobile, your SaskTel authorized dealer.
We had some conversations with Medicine Hat late last week, and they just continued here, and we threw out a number of different scenarios, and we just couldn't seem to find a match. And this morning we came to terms with Wapple and McVeigh in return for Schneider in third, and it was a challenging deal to make and to get finalized, but in saying that, we think it helps address two of our needs.
How much of a need was goaltending in your view?
Well, if you're going to have success at this level, you need to have good goaltending, and I think we've seen that Dawson McCauley is capable of being that guy, and yet it's probably been inconsistent at times. And with Wapple, he's a young guy. Again, I think he stepped in and played exceptionally well, especially with the absence of their number one guy. And I've always said if you have internal competition, I think it's healthy and it's beneficial. And I think Wapple definitely will challenge McCauley and bring the best out of him. And again, we have a guy that can be here again next year as well.
What was the need that McVeigh filled?
Well, I think we wanted to address down the middle. He's a guy that can play down the middle. He can center our second line. He's very familiar with both Chandler Stevenson and Boston Lear. He spent most of the majority of last year playing with Boston. In midget, he played a lot with Chandler. So I think he has a lot of similarities of what Boston was. He works extremely hard. He's a real steady two-way centerman. He will provide us that depth down the middle, and we're hopeful that his point production can take off here just like Boston's.
Is it nice to have a guy that can come in and play second line center and allow Boston to play in his natural position, the left wing?
Well, for sure. I think Boston did a real good job for our hockey club filling in that number 2 spot, as did D'Amico, when we recalled to him. But, he's more beneficial on the wing. And, I think the fact that these two guys have played together, we're hoping that the transition and the reunitement of their chemistry can get going right off the bat. But, it was what we thought was a big hole, and we think we've addressed it.
Will Wapple be here to back up Schneider tonight? And will they be here in time? I don't know if he'd play, but will they be here in time?
Well, they both jumped in their vehicles right after. It was a quick turnaround for them, as we played tonight and only having the one goalie. So all indications, yes, Wapple will be here tonight to dress. And as far as McVeigh, I highly doubt he'll dress tonight, just with what's went on today, and being thrown into the lineup without knowing systems and having the opportunity to talk with the coaching staff. But both will be here today.
How do you feel about what you got done today as it relates maybe to what your goals were going in?
Well, you know what? I think we're pretty happy. I think there's a lot of hype on trade deadline day, and yet we think we've added pieces throughout the course of the year. I think, when you add a guy like Boston Lear to our lineup early, I think when you add a defenseman like Jesse Zaragan to your lineup, early, those were two big pieces to our hockey club. And now adding a centerman and to me, depth in that goaltending position, I think we addressed some of those needs that were needed. And like I said, when this hockey team's playing to its potential and consistent, I believe we got a real exciting team and a good hockey club. And we just feel that these two pieces should add to that.
With some of the moves made around you, how much pressure did you feel to improve your team?
You know what? Every team has different dynamics, and I try, as much as you try to block it out, you're always saying, well, we have to face those teams. And there's no question when you look at what Calgary's done over the last couple of days, they've added, and other teams have added. And but I thought majority of the deals, especially 2 days ago, was about moving 20-year-olds. There was a lot of 20-year-olds shifting teams, as well as some picks and maybe some depth players. But we were in a position where we felt real strong with our 20-year-old situation. And like I said, from day one, we wanted to dress down the middle. If we had an opportunity to address our goaltending, we wanted to. And, I think we were able to accomplish that.
Other than yourselves, it was kind of a slow day across the board. There were deals made earlier in the week, but what do you attribute that to?
Well, I think there's a couple things. I think there's the parity in the league. As you can see, in the East, it's extremely tight. In the West, it's extremely tight. There's not a lot of separation, and I think teams have all, with the exception of, the Portlands and Kelowna and even Calgary, teams have been streaky. They've been able to put a run of 5 real good games and then, 4 games that aren't so good. And I think you've seen that from all the teams. And, when it's this tight and there's this much parity, there weren't as many sellers. And those guys that had the opportunity to sell sold assets early in the year. And, teams weren't willing to make drastic changes to, their current rosters because they all felt they had the opportunity to compete for playoff spots.
Are teams' asking prices still unrealistic?
Well, I guess if you got a trading partner and you can make it work, then, I don't know what realistic or unrealistic is. I think prices have gone up over the last few years. And yet, like we've talked about, we want to make sound hockey decisions and good trades for both teams. And, we thought we were able to accomplish that today.
How much pressure do you guys feel to get back into the playoffs? It's been, not a long run in the playoffs here the last 5 years.
Well, I think that's how you identify who's successful. I think making the postseason is extremely important for an organization. We haven't been there consistently enough. As an organization, we understand that, and we want to work to correcting that. I know there's a lot of talk about, having long-term runs in the postseason, and yes, but I think if you ask all 22 teams, they all want that. But just making the postseason is significantly challenging, and especially on our side with 12 teams and how strong the teams are and the parity that I talked about in the league. That it's extremely tough, and as an organization, we want to be a team that puts ourselves in the position to compete and make the postseason each and every year. So, that's what we're striving for.
Do you think the moves today then signify that to not only the players, the coaches, but as well as your fans?
Well, I think so. I think, we want to show that we want to compete and we want to challenge for the playoffs. And you can't year after year after year just talk about selling. At some point you got to say, okay, there's a nucleus here, there's a group here that have that opportunity. And we thought by tweaking our lineup, it just improved our chances. The one thing when you look at this hockey club and the moves we've made, we never took one guy with the exception of a 16-year-old goalie out of our lineup. We haven't taken a starting guy out of the lineup. We return 11 forwards. We return 70, and both goaltenders can come back. We're in a real good position with the depth of this team. So those were things that, it's easy to say you're going to go after guys off other teams, but in order to make those good hockey decisions, you got to give up good players. And there's no question when teams approached us, they were really focusing on that 18-year-old age group of our team. And to me, those guys all contribute now, and in my opinion, they're 2.5-year players for this team, and they're important for us right now and in the future.
Was there ever anything presented to you that made you tempted to go the other way?
No.
As far as your veteran guys?
No. Nothing at all.
Speaking of that 16-year-old goalie, when Tegan Satcher left, you kind of identified him as a piece of the future. I guess what changed and why did you get rid of him?
Well, I think just what I indicated. I think we went back and forth at length with it. We know Nick's not only has a bright future, but he's a tremendous kid. It really tore at us, because we knew what his potential was, and yet in order to get some of those pieces, you have to give up, and we weren't in a position where we wanted to move anybody in that 18-year-old age group. That's regulars in our lineup, and that's what makes this league so unique and so challenging, that you have to give up assets to get good assets, and we think we were able to do that, like I said, without really affecting the look of our team.
From that aspect, not from a business point of view and what it looks like on paper, but how difficult is it from a human level making these deals involving kids and in some aspects sending them across the country, halfway across the country?
Well, I think if it doesn't affect you, then you really don't have a pulse. You know, I think when you look at it, and, you know, maybe it's different because I got 2 kids of my own, but, you know, everybody in this industry is in it to help with the development of these young men, both on and off the ice. And as much as it's a game, it's a business, and it's a balancing act. You know, you got a young 16-year-old now that you have to bring in and form him, and again, now he's moving, you know, to a new city, a new school again, new billet homes, and it does take its toll on these kids. And I've always said the pressure on these kids nowadays, and we've seen it with our national program, it's all about winning, and it does take its toll on it, and it takes its toll on the staff and everybody that's associated with them.